Yeah, I will. It's going to be all right. Whoops. That was loud. Hey, Michelle, is that too loud? Is that okay? Are you ready to begin? Okay. Number one, I want to thank everyone for coming to hear this wonderful lecture that you're going to get today. You're going to hear all about how it was growing up in the country. But you know what's interesting? Before I moved here, we lived on Circle Drive, and I never knew this, but just, was it yesterday, son? Yesterday or 2 days ago, I said, Stuart, let's measure it to see how far it is from where I live to where I'm going. Anyone want to guess how Circle Drive is here? 1 mile. 1 mile. I thought at that time it was an eons away because that's how it felt. Now, I want to tell you, over the years, my siblings and I, most of the younger ones like me, we used to go out to my dad's farm a lot. And we would go out there, and always we would have, first thing, some chocolate milk. Now, where did we get it? From the dairy there. Yes, a dairy, a small dairy on the farm. This is the house, Stuart, the house that, what's there now? Is that the horse? That's not the horse. Okay. Okay, we're out of sync. But, uh, okay, you want to show the house where they, all right, this is the house where my dad grew up with his sister and his three brothers. One of the brothers had moved away, and my Uncle Mac was the second one. Uncle George, the eldest brother, my dad was the youngest. He's the little one there. Picture of the children. They just gave this to Stuart this morning, so it's okay. But my dad was the youngest. He's the little one there. Okay. I'm not going to worry about it then. Okay. But out of the four children, my dad was the youngest. And when his father passed away, when he was in the fourth grade, he had to leave school and begin working on the farm. Now, when you're a young kid and working on the farm, you don't know a lot, but you work hard. And over the years, my dad became very responsible for taking care of all the farm with his helpers. And eventually, after his father died and his mother moved away and remarried, they divided the land up between the brothers and the sisters. And his sister has land that's right on, oh gosh, the street you turn to go to church and whatever it is. It's 1 block up this street. And she has developed land down this street going, uh, it, I'm sorry, I can't remember the street. I've told uh, Betsy that I have short-term memory, which is why I have this in my hand, because I do have problems with my mind. Okay, I'm just going to read it, and you worry about the pictures the best you can. Daddy kept his horse Doug. Got the horse? Okay. Daddy would bring his horse over to the circle, because at that time there were not a full manner of houses over there. We were one of the first houses that built over there. And he would bring on a Sunday after church, he would I don't even think he saddled the horse, but he would ride the horse over to Circle Drive. And all the kids that were there, he would let them get up. They had to be helped up on the horse. You can see how very big that horse is. And there, I think, are 5 of us up there. The little one is my baby brother. He's probably 3. I'm 4 years older. That's me, the second one. The third one is my brother, 2 years older, Johnny. And then the next one is my sister, who is 4 years older. And then that is a neighbor, Frank Huffines, who lived next door to me. And his mother was the dearest soul to me because with 9 children, although my baby brother before Jerry died when he was a year old. But so my mother didn't have time to spend a lot with each child. So Frank Huffine's mother, who lived next door to my right, every Easter and every Christmas and so forth, she would see me and she would say, "You're so pretty. You look so good." And just made me feel so good. I have never, in all these many years, forgotten that woman. It doesn't take but one person to make you feel good about yourself. And my mother did not neglect me, but when you have that many children, each child can only get so much attention. And later on, I'm going to have so much to tell you about my mother, because when I think about it, I sit there in this chair and tears come to my eyes because I think, Lord, I wish I had done so much more for my mother. I wish I had. I think we all get to that place. But I do. I think I spent so much time frivolously, and I wish that I had spent so much time doing more for her. It, I know, I know. Okay, this grandfather died when his father was in the 4th grade. He had to leave school to help on the farm. His mother remarried, I've told you this, in short order, or after my father took over responsibility of the farm. They divided the land. Now that we have jumped out of the hayloft and into the wagon and so forth, which we did, that was the fun part. I loved it. Chickens and cows and everything were all running around and so forth. But now I'm getting to the part that we're being told we're not going to visit the farm, we're going to move to the farm. 2 different things. When you think you can visit and then go home, and even though my home on the circle was much smaller, we were crowded up like everything. But I was there close to my friends. There were 2 good friends that I had, one on each block, and we spent time with each other all the time. I could go down there. My mother knew where I was, and the other mother knew where her daughter was. And it was just living, just living. And I can remember when they were building new houses on the circle. I'm talking more about that because I remember that too well. But when they were building, the men would come to build, and my brothers had a wagon, and my dad would go to the grocery store and get Coca-Colas, and we would sell them. 2 little kids. I'm 5, 6, 7 years old, and that was so much fun. I thought, I'm so big, I'm out selling things and making money. You know, you just remember things like that. But anyway, he took us out to show us where we were going to be building our house. There was a log cabin, on the house, on the lot. So we had to get the log cabin moved. So where was it moved? Directly behind where we were going to build the house. So it was behind this house, straight back. Eventually, it was moved, and I didn't think anything about the location of this. Later on, it would play a big part in my life. How many knew about that, the log cabin? Beth, you did. Okay. So soon afterwards, the creek that was below our house, there was a bridge there. Do you remember the bridge, Ed? Yeah. Well, it not now. I know. I know. So, but anyway, there was a bridge there, Ed, and the creek came down, and I wondered why our house was here instead of at his farm, this was not his farm. And so I found out that the creek below our house was the county line. The ones on this side went to county schools. The ones on this side went to Burlington schools. So I was able to continue going back to Burlington City Schools, which was Hillcrest Avenue. Do you remember Hillcrest Avenue? And so, anyway, I stayed there, and my brothers and sisters did also. So we did not have to meet new people and everything. We stayed exactly where we were. So I said, my mom and dad knew this, and this is exactly why the house is built where it is. Okie doke. So now let me see. After moving, I then realized that I was way away from my friends. I could no longer walk to their homes, and I could no longer walk to my grandmother's home. Even as a 6 and a 7-year-old child, I walked from my home on Circle Drive, which is at the end of Glenwood near Richard Thompson Funeral Home. I walked to my grandmother's house. I walked down Glenwood Avenue toward the cemetery, down that street to Moorhead Street. Any of you shaking your heads? And then I walked down Moorhead Street, turned at Sellers Mill, and went down. It was either Acorn or Chestnut Street. That's where my grandmother lived, my mother's mother. I adored this woman, and I would walk down there just so I could spend the night with her. And she had to add a room onto her house because her son was coming to live with her. There was no heat in there, so when I would go to sleep at night, my grandmother would come in and hug me good night, and then she would pour blankets on me. And where she got these wonderful warm blankets, I don't know, she probably made them. But my grandmother was so poor that she just had hardly anything, but she kept those blankets on me. I always felt I was her favorite child. And it could be that I was the youngest girl, I don't know. But I know that we had such a beautiful, beautiful relationship. And I missed that when I moved out here. You miss those things. And I'll tell you about our Christmas later, about seeing her. Okay, let me see. Okay, the other thing that I missed, I talked about missing my friends in the circle, but I also missed walking to school. I used to walk to Hillcrest. I absolutely loved walking because there were two girls that lived near me, 2 years older, and they walked in front of me, and I used to watch them. And then my sisters walked, and my brother, and we walked down the street across the creek at the Legion Hut. And it's now a beautiful place down there. And at that time, there was a stream that was not too wide, so there was a big rock in the middle, and it was flat. And you could put your foot on it so you could hop from one to the other and get to the other side. And once my sister's foot fell in, she had to go back home, get clean socks and so forth. But I enjoyed that. This was the Legion Hut. It had the swings and the slides and the monkey bars. And coming home from school, we would stop and play there. It was just a wonderful, delightful childhood. I never thought I'd see that again, but I was wrong. Living in the country was absolutely, after a while, I had to get accustomed to it, but I absolutely loved it. And the things that Jerry, my little brother, 4 years younger, my sisters, finally, and my mother gave me Jerry as my charge. So this 3-year-old child was my responsibility. I'm 7, 4 years older. He is my charge. I have to watch after him. But at this time, my sisters, all 4 and 6 and 8 years old, there were 9 children, but only 8 growing up because of the little brother that I had lost. And I dearly loved that child, and I was only 3. But I remember 2 things about Ben. One was him pushing his uh, crib down the hall. The house on Circle had a wide hall. I think it was part of the dining room, but it was wide. And he would push his stroller up and down. He was a year old, 1 year. And the other, he was climbing up in the chair in the kitchen. And I remember seeing that. 2 things I've never forgotten. And I don't know why I remembered those 2, but that's it. It's amazing what a 3-year-old child can remember, though. And when I was doing this, I thought so much about how we were going to miss him when we had moved in. Uh, okay, we're finding out we have more room in the house. There are 4 bedrooms upstairs, and Betsy wanted me to tell you what was different about the house, and I had the pictures, but I thought that they were on. All right, what do you have?
This was the barn that used to be on Edgewood. It's an ink drawing. That's the barn on Edgewood. That was her parents. All right. And then here are the rooms. There's the
Can you all hear him? Okay.
That's the living room. That stayed the same. And there's the porch through the doorway. There's the porch.
We don't talk about the porch yet. That's later. Okay.
This is the kitchen. And then that's the dining room. And then so that's it. So you can go.
Okay, now the kitchen I have to tell you about. The bedrooms upstairs are the same now in this house as they were when I was growing up. Difference is they now have a nice shower in the bathroom upstairs. We did not have a shower. You filled the tub up and crawled in. Okay, the lavatory is the same and so forth. Oh, excuse me a minute. Okay, thank you, hon. Uh, The 4 other rooms are the same. The first bedroom on the left, as you go up the steps, was the room that I stayed in. And as a child moved away and grew to go do something else, like one sister that I adored left, she was the eldest, and she went to St. Leo's Hospital and became a nurse. She's the sister that I idolized. And whatever she did, I wanted to do. If she wore glasses while she was reading, I had to have glasses while I was reading. I didn't, but that's how much. She was the eldest, I was the youngest. And I found out later, she told me this, uh, that when baby Ben was dying, that she was holding him. And she never, never, ever was able to get over that, the fact that she held her brother. And it was because my mother was still getting over her pregnancy and his, you know, also, um, never mind, something else. And but this is a sister that I absolutely adored. And in later years, the nice thing about it is Carlene and I became close. And we were closer than the other 3 sisters. They were close, but Carlene and I were so close. And whenever she had to go to the hospital, I was there. And she was always there for me, always. And in a large family, you become very close, but you just naturally gravitate to some that are closer to you in thinking and so forth. And I missed her when she died. She had lived at the Presbyterian home with her husband was there, and he died before she did. But she had moved to Greensboro to the, oh gosh, well, not Wellsboro, what's the other one? The nursing home up there. The one that's connected to us. Huh? Well, doesn't matter. That's where it's very nice when it, thanks, Ann. Ann said that to me every time we went over this. I'd say, you know, I've forgotten it. Mom, it doesn't matter. Thank you, Ann. No, I meant that. Thank you, sweetheart. Because some things are not important, whether you remember a name or not. I don't know how many have short-term memory. I think it's what it's called. That's what I have. Have you ever heard of that? Short-term memory. And I do well, but sometimes when I get stuck, it's a fun thing. What is that old saying? You can go hide your own Easter eggs and then go hunt them and so, but okay. All right, I've told you about my sweet little Ben. All right. Uh, I've told Jerry, who is now 4 years old, so I must be about 8 because I was 4 years older. And they tell me, he's yours. And I thought, well, what am I going to do with this child? And do we have a picture of him? Because he was on the horse in the front. Is he there with my mom? That's my little brother. And I looked at his picture, he's precious. And I just had more fun with him. I was like his baby mother or something, I don't know. All right. It really worked out well because my sisters were now getting older. They could help my mother. My mother continued to do all the cooking in this kitchen. And they were able to do the dusting and the vacuuming and this thing and that thing. So all of us had a chore to do. Some were more interesting and fun than others, but eventually we all ended up doing whatever had to be done. We worked together as a group. Some of us were, as I say, were closer than others, but we all, if you're a family that size, you learn to work together. All right. Uh, Many times, let me see what we're doing. Oh, this was a fun thing. The creek down here. I would take Jerry down there and Johnny would go. Johnny was 2 years older and we would all go down to the creek, stay down there, absolutely felt like hours. We just had so much fun. And my mother knew that I would take care of him and knew that I would not let anything happen to him or to me. And we stayed down there and I don't know how long it was, but the water was this high, 2 inches. There was one in the whole creek that was deep enough that we could lie down and get the water all over us. So that's what we played in. But this was absolutely heaven. We were outdoors, we were in the sunshine, and we were in the water playing and did it for hours. We had to go by the log cabin that was moved from our house behind our house. And there was a little road. This road was not here. The one here was not here. There was a one car lane that went right practically under our uh, windowsills for the kitchen, but actually our yard sloped down and it went right down and probably almost to the center of where Rockwood, how it's divided. Our yard sloped, went almost there. And then there was a one-car driveway that went, it was gravel, and I have a gravel in my knee to this day where I fell on that gravel road. And that went to the log cabin behind the house. I had a brother-in-law who was a veterinarian, and he said, "Do you want me to take that out?" And I said, "No, I don't think I do. I think I'll just keep it as a souvenir." So I still have it. And when I look down sometimes, seldom, but I see it, and it's a reminder that you were running, doing something fun, you fell, got it in, skinned my knee, and I wouldn't let my mother clean it. And so voila, you've got a little gravel in your leg. But that's okay. All right. So we're down there playing, and what I want to tell you, have to go by the log cabin. A man lives there, his name is Bob Neville. And this cabin was the cabin that my uncle had lived in. Now he has moved up to the farm. And Bob Neville's is a local man, wonderful man. And when I walked home from school or my brothers, if I'd see a car coming down the road, I'd say, that's got to be Bob. Because why? Not many cars on this road. So if you saw a car, you almost knew who it was. And it was always Bob. And he would pick me up, take me down to where his road went down beside our house. I'd get out and I'd walk up. He would go on back to the log cabin. Wonderful man. I found out I went off to watch to nursing school just like my sister had because I wanted to be just like her. And Bob Neville's lived in that house from the time that the cabin was back there when we started building our house until I came home from Watts. I left in '48, came back in '51, and he was still there. But eventually he did leave, and he went out to, oh gosh, the same place that I couldn't remember a while ago. Uh, what? Twin Lakes. He went to Twin Lakes. He owned some property exactly where Twin Lakes is. And I happen to know this, that his wife lived there forever for free. So he must have had a good portion of the land, I don't know. But I do know that he was good to me, Bob was, and a good neighbor. Okay, let me see. Oh, okay. We're going to talk about the attic. We had an attic upstairs, took over the whole top floor, had flooring in it, but it happened to be hot in the summer and cold in the winter. But we would put a coat on and go up there. Well, I'd take Jerry up there and we would sit up there, he with his trucks on one side and me with my paper dolls and baby dolls on the other side. There was a staircase, but had a handle that you could pull them down, and there were steps up to the ladder. And when Stuart went over to check on this, it sealed up. So I'm assuming that they did not want anyone up there to fall or anything, because the steps going up in the attic are, steep, fairly steep. But we used to go up there and run up and down like this. Kids do things like that. You don't do it now. But we spent so much time up there. If it was raining outside or cold outside, it was cold up there too, but not like outside. And we just enjoyed each other. Jerry and I learned to play together. And outside, one day we would play baseball, and the next day we'd play baby doll. It really did not matter. But later, when Jerry died, his wife, they lived in California, she sent me a big package with his personal items and sent me his flag that he had gotten. He was in the Navy, lived in California. But that's how close we were. She thought of me, and he apparently had talked about me. But this, this is this is how a family is, and this is how a family should be, close together. Sometimes it doesn't always happen, but most times it does. Okay, Stuart went up there one day, and I said, check to see if they've got that handle there. No handle, no handle. Okay, my brother Johnny, or Marvin, 2 years older. Now, he was chosen to be the one to work on the farm to help his dad. Now, I don't know what he was doing, but I don't think he was too happy. With 5 girls, my dad had one, the eldest son, Irvin, who, when he had the grocery stores, he was sent to work in the grocery stores. Then you had the 5 girls, not going to work on, on the farm. And then this brother, 2 years older than me, he was the one, sorry to say, chosen to do it. I don't think he ever liked it, but he's the one that had to go. I don't know what he did. I'm sure he couldn't do a lot as young as he was, but he was the one chosen to do that. And when I say I don't know what he did, and how none of us enjoyed doing that, but I know one thing, we enjoyed the fruit the watermelon, the cantaloupe, the beans, all the things that somebody raises and does on a farm. My dad had the best watermelons of anybody, and you're grinning, bud. They were the best watermelons of anywhere, ever, ever, ever. And the best cantaloupes. And the vegetables also. That was a special thing and a special time that I spent with my mother, because the girls were doing the vacuuming and all these things. But when my dad brought the bean, my mother and I would go out and sit on little stools on the back porch. And we would have all these baskets full of whatever. And we would snap beans and we would peel peas. We would do all of these things. And the nice thing about it is my mom and I were able to talk and spend a lot of time, the two of us, just talking. I cannot tell you this day what we talked about, but I will tell you I felt so close to her at that time. And that was our time together, like my grandmother's time to me. This was my mother's mother. And I'm getting choked up a little bit, but anyway, we spent so much time, and my dad would take his truck and he would go to Georgia and get peaches by the basketfuls, bring them back, take them to the grocery store, and they were sold out in no time. No time. He did this every single year. That man, and let me see if I can find it. Yeah, I'm going to read it right here. He would bring the watermelons home and he would take a big butcher knife, cut it in pieces. No forks, no spoons, no knives. We picked it up with our hands and ate it, and the best. Listen, I have yet to eat a watermelon or a cantaloupe as good as my dad's. Let me reiterate, my father loved farming, getting into the dirt. I truly think he was inspired. And I do mean that. This was something that he had to do when he left school. But over the years, it's like something else. You find out you're doing something because you have to, and all of a sudden you find out that you like doing what you had to do. And he did. And I think up until the day he died, almost, that he would have loved being out there doing what he was doing, riding his tractor, which he kept his tractor at our house because we had a small barn behind our house where he kept whatever. But he had a sort of a shed, Stuart, over here, and he kept the tractor there. And had what? Had, okay. And then over to the right, closer to the Pascal property, we had, I don't know, 2, 3, I had to feed them with the leftover food. We had 3 pigs, and these pigs were eventually eaten. But anyway, and we also had a chicken coop out there, and the chickens were eventually eaten. Over to the right, as you come up the driveway, we had flowers and so forth that go over toward the land over here, and had the clothesline, and we had a building of something, I don't know, and then the chicken coop and everything. And in the back where the barn was, the pigs were over here, and they went over toward this property over here, back toward the end of it. And my dad's property went back where the houses are back there. There are two houses back there. One is my sister's house. She sold it. She's not living anymore. And the other was Jan's, where she lived, right beside, uh, what's the name of that street? Harbor. Arbor. Okay. Now, in the evenings, you wanted to know what we did as a family. After dinner or supper, as we called it, we would go outside, about 6 of us, and we would play Mother May I, and I'm not sure anybody remembers that. You're shaking your head. Mother May I, red light, teacher. I don't know whether you played teacher, but you'd get a rock and you'd go up the steps, and we had steps in the front, and we would play, you get to move up a step. Now, with your own built-in group, you can do these things, because there were 5 or 6 of us, and we'd go play. We played, okay. One thing we did, we caught June bugs. Anybody caught June bugs? And tie a string around their leg and let it fly around. And I told Stuart today, thinking back, when I used to live on the circle, when they would mow the grass, I would pull the grass together and make a make-believe house, and I would get the June bug, and that was the little baby that was in the house. And you do silly things, but I remember those silly things, and it brings back such beautiful, pleasant memories to me. It really does. Okay, the other thing was lightning bugs. Did you catch lightning bugs? And you'd put them in a bottle, and what would you do? You would put holes in the top so they could breathe. So we did a lot of that. Okay, do kids do that anymore? Do they? Do they still do that? No more lightning bugs. Well, I had noticed we killed them. We need you to go up there to get up there with, what's his name? Uh, what's the guy's name? What? Uh-huh. I know, yeah. Well, you know what? They don't now. They don't. They have, what's the, Robert Kennedy. Robert Kennedy. Yeah, he's big on things like that and food and so forth. Yeah, that's good. That's good. But you know what, Bud? That I'm glad you brought that up, because Tarleton Avenue was the last paved road, and from there on in, it was called what? Do you remember? Route 4, before Edgewood ever had a name out here. It must have been 48, because it was not paved when I went off to nursing school. Then when I came back, it was. But still not a wide road because they still had ditches. Because I remember when we moved up to Westover Terrace, we were on the corner, and we had just moved there, and Stuart was a baby. He was, I don't know how old, maybe a year old, and he was outside with me, and he got away real fast, and he was going down the ditch, and we had a German Shepherd dog that stayed in the house, watching Flock, watching Hazel. He saw Stuart going into that ditch. At that time, the ditches were down like this, okay? And pulled Stuart back by his diapers. It really, well, it scared me. It didn't, because he got away so fast. But my dog, I called him Baby Dog, big German Shepherd. My husband had worked in Germany, lived in Germany for a while after the war, and he loved German Shepherds. So when we wanted a good one, he would get one from Germany. They would send him over on the plane. But we always had shepherd dogs, as long as I can remember that we were married. Okie doke, let me see where I am. Oh, Bud, one more thing. You called me and told me about something at the corner of the Pascals. I told you I thought it was a place where they fix cars, but Edgewood and Stuart, Hermitage. That's what it was. You told me about that. I didn't know that. And that was a building beside where the guys worked in the cars. Okay. It's funny. All right, Stuart, show them where Edith Street. Anyone know where she lives? She's right next door to you. Stuart went out and did all of this. Did you know that? Okay, well, Stuart went out and what'd you do, son? Yeah. Okay. And you did not know that? Well, and this is why Edith Cafe, where it got its name and so forth. Gosh.
You want to show the window where the coal came into the house?
Wait a minute, I'm trying to look and see. Okay, I talked to you about the 4 rooms upstairs. Oh, the basement. Now, I've noticed that they have the basement door sealed. How many of you all have been in the house? Okay, a lot of you. The basement door was sealed, and I guess they don't want you in the attic or in the basement, because I guess they don't want you to fall. And I'm sort of glad. But cleaning the basement was, they had cement flooring, and it was big. And that was my responsibility. I had to do that every week or Saturday or what, sweep the basement steps and downstairs. And we had downstairs what we called a coal room, COAL. Now, outside, beside the screened-in porch, there is a window, and the coal trucks would come, and they would put a slide down, or whatever you call it, and they would pour the coal down the window, and it completely almost filled this room, this one room downstairs, like my den. Bud, you're shaking your head. You know about that too. Didn't they really? I, that's interesting. Susan, I didn't see you. I'm so glad you were here. Oh my gosh. Yeah. We have to talk loud. Over at this hospital. You mean when you left? Okay. Yeah. Uh-huh. Marty, that's your. Marty is someone very special. He worked at Alamance County, Alamance ARMC. I get mixed up with general and county and all, you know. But anyway, I did not know he had done that. But I want to say this before I forget it. We had local men at the county hospital where I worked, and the Memorial Hospital, also General Hospital. I don't know how many of you know where General Hospital was, and I don't know the name of the street. Rainy Street, but that was across town, and businessmen contributed and helped direct getting these things started. And I just want to tell you how important it is. It's like Musk and Donald Trump, who have done so much to help in the country. And it's the same way with local people. And I think it was Ralph Holt that had helped on this hospital, and Earl Perdue that had helped on County Hospital, and then the two of them together went to get, I guess, the other one other hospital, ARMC. How many of you been a patient at ARMC? I worked over there for 1 year as a volunteer because as soon as the hospital was built, I had told someone, I said, I want to work at the hospital. When you're in nursing, you love it or you don't love it. And if you love it and you feel like it's something you were supposed to do, you want to keep doing it, don't you, Beth? And I had, at my reunion, I said, we're building a new hospital and I want to go and work there. And so she called me, she says, we're starting something as a volunteer. And so I was there, I was one of the first groups that had, Karen, thanks, honey, had she had told me she had to leave. What was I saying? Okay, the volunteer group. Thanks, Beth. We, anyway, I was in the first group that volunteered to work in the cancer center, and I worked there for 10 years and loved it. It's so wonderful to be able to see what you're doing is helping so many people. Not that I did anything, but I just welcome the people to come in and sign them in and so forth. Every little thing you do. You know, nobody can have the big jobs all the time. It takes a lot of little people to get things done. And so whatever you do to help promote the welfare of everything, you're important, I think. I think that everyone has something special to do. Okay, let me see where we are. Huh? I was, uh, they're called red ladies now. I was a pink lady. I was a pink lady. And I don't know whether I turned my pink jacket in or not, but uh, yeah, I worked in the cancer center and fell in love with the guy, and I can't remember his name. What was it? Shotzi. You got it. You knew who I was talking. Dearly loved him, just so sweet. I always fell in love with my doctors. It was just something I did. Okay. Huh? You knew everybody, Marty. Marty was one of the favorite people that worked at the hospital for how many years, Marty? Yeah. And when Marty left, they gave him a going away party. And I was privy to the information that he had more people at his going away party than anybody else. Didn't matter who it was. Marty won't tell you that, but I'll tell you. Everybody loved Marty. Oh, yeah, yeah. Questions? And I hope I can answer them. I wanted to, yes. Oh, yes. 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 It's two different farms. Our farm was, what's the name of that road? Engelman's, what I'm trying to think, is where my aunt's property is. And it went down Englewood and went directly back in there. And I do not know how much it was. My dad's farm started after Engelman. There are two houses on front. Gene Mack used to live there, and then someone else. Then my dad's farm started and went that way. And he had his brothers, because he stayed with us, his Uncle George, my eldest uncle. His farm went up the other way to, the grocery store, or I'm sorry, Marty's painting store, the service station. Yeah, Rago. That was that.
Behind the Bryan house, all the way to Arbor Lane. And it was a dead end where Rockwood was. It was a dead end. And his property went down so far, and then the pastoral property was adjoining it.
And in my dad's property, the farm was on up that way, and had quite his father had quite a bit of land. But remember, this was country land, just happened to be in West Burlington. Never can tell, can you?
Tear it down, and we had those bowls made out of the tree, those burlwood.
Stuart, show that picture of. Okay, this tree right here. These are the bowls that were there. And that farmhouse, Stuart lived there. My sister and her husband and two children lived there. But somebody else.
Your brother, Johnny.
Johnny, my brother, lived there with his wife. And then my son lived there with his two daughters and his wife. The one that built the house next to it. And that's where oh gosh.
This barn was to the right of that little farmhouse.
Mike Walsh.
And the dairy.
Were you here when Mike Walsh was here? Okay, Mike. Okay, well, Mike Walsh was here before he came. And then he bought Bowen's house, my son. And Bowen lived in the house right beside where the farmhouse stood. So it stood right after you passed Engelman, going up there. And Stewart Court, quote, is for Stewart, is right behind it. And on that way, where the churches are, that was his land. And he gave that land to the church. I wanted to read one thing about my dad, if I can find it. It won't take but a minute. And is it time to go? Everybody, you all can leave whenever you want to, but I want to tell you about that. I forgot to tell you about getting behind the day bed in the den and brushing my mother's hair. That was
Also, the bedroom is turned into the den.
yeah. I told them that. I think I told you the den. I'm going to tell you about the patio, not the patio, but the side porch. Beautiful side porch. And this log cabin back here, the man that had lived there for 1,000 years, all the time I was growing up and the time so forth. So when I came back from Watts, gone to nursing school, it was 51. And about that same time, they were building the hospital across town and it was opening. Worked out beautiful for me. But anyway, in the middle, when I found out they were having a nursing home, I said, I'm going to go over there because I want to work in surgery if they had a place for me. So it was a Bo Harper. You remember him? Bo Harper was a doctor, was killed in an airplane crash. But he was a wonderful doctor. He came to me when I had pneumonia and came to the house, took care of me. things were so great. We lived at a good time. I did, I think. Still am. But anyway, Bob Neville, when I came back, I heard that he had moved, as I told you, to Twin Lakes and built his house because he owned property there. And so Burlington being a small town, everybody knows everything about everybody, just about. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But at this particular time, there was a young man who had just left Germany. He'd been over there. He'd been in Washington on the Adlai Stevenson campaign, enjoyed it, had ended up in Raleigh working with a friend. And they decided they wanted to go somewhere and set up a law practice. And somebody said his brother just happened to be living in Burlington. Not this man, but his partner's brother lived in Burlington. He said, why don't you go to Burlington? Okay, why not? Goes to Burlington. So he's looking for a place to live. Well, guess what? The word around town, as I say, it's a small town. Everybody does. And if they don't know it, the people you have working for you, they know it. And so they said, Duncan Bryan has a cabin that's just become empty. This man had lived here forever. Okay, he calls him up. There he goes. So this man is in this cabin. So in the meantime, I'm living at the nursing home across town at that hospital. I stay there 2 years. I'm very happy. It's the first time in my life I've been able to go out and date without a house mother or my mother and dad. And when my boyfriends came to my house, they're turned around in the backyard, around the big tree, and guess where the lights went? In that downstairs bedroom, right in my dad's eyes. That's where it went. So he knew everything without, and he went to bed early, but those lights. So I'd been there too. My mother came to me. She said, would you consider moving back home? And I said, I just said yes. I didn't ask her why. I didn't ask her anything. Everyone has told me because she knew who this, no, she didn't. She didn't even know him. But anyway, I told her I would move home. So later on, this big yard that everybody in the family took turns mowing, and it was a big yard. And it was not an electric motor as I remember. I think it was one of those that you push, 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 push. And so one day I was out pushing the lawnmower down by the road, and this man drives by. He stops and we start talking, so he goes on back to the cabin. And later on, just by talking to him, he knew that I worked at the hospital and so forth. And so a few days later, he calls me up and he says, my car's not working. Said, do you mind if I ride to town and you could drop me off? He was working in the big building downtown, the only big building downtown, the tall, 8 or 7 stores. Anyway, security, you're right. So I drop him off. So this happened a lot. Now, this van happened to have had a brand spanking new Packard convertible with red leather seats, but it was always broken down. So this is how I got to meet him, and this is the man that, anyway, later on I called him up, there was a dance, and I said, would you like for me to get you a date and we can double date? Very demurely, And I will tell you, as a rule, I'm not forward. I'm very shy. Flirty, yes, but shy. And my daughter says, Mom, how do you compute that? I said, I don't know, but it's the truth. But anyway, I called him up, asked him if he'd like, and he said yes right away. So I really think we had liked each other right then. But anyway, I said, I'll get you a date with a good friend. So I did. So he dated her, and I dated my friend, and so forth, and so on. So one day I'm sitting at the pool, dangling my feet, and he's been dating her for a while. And he comes and he sits down beside me, and he said, would you go out to dinner with me tonight? And I said, I can't go out to dinner with you. You're dating my girlfriend. He said, not anymore. And I said, let's go. So we went to dinner, and that's pretty much it. And 4 months later, we were married. 4 months later. And I think it was. But anyway, the porch, the side porch that I would not tell you about, I was out there in a lounge chair reading a book, and he's coming in the back door. My mom sees him and she waves him in. And he comes in and proposes on one knee. Very, very romantic. Did you do that? Betsy, you know what, Betsy? We're two of a kind, aren't we? We go after them, don't we? If we want them, we go after them. Listen, I've taken up so much time, and I'm sorry, but I want to tell you one thing. The kitchen has been redone over. The stove and the refrigerator were reversed, two different places. But there was a long bench behind this big table and there were three people that sat on that bench in the back of the table, have meals. And can you guess who sat in the middle? It was me, because I was the youngest girl. And I had to sit in the middle, and all the others sat around the table. And it, it was good. I was closer to some of them than others, but we loved, we loved the house. I look at it now and I think about the good times that I had, and it was great. The kitchen, but we did have a pantry, and it was ice cold, I will tell you, because we kept the door closed. But that's where we put all these peaches and pears and everything. And my mother, later in life, became very interested in, she bought a kiln. You know what a kiln is? She bought that. She also had I told you about the mangle, or did I? Do you know what a mangle is? Do you know? My mother had a mangle. I called it a mangler, but she said mangle. And she could take sheets and clothes, and you work it with your feet like you do a sewing machine. And my mother could do everything, everything. But she would take a nap every day because she worked from morning till night. But every day she'd take a nap, and I would go behind the day bed while she rested and slept. I would brush her hair, and she had absolutely beautiful hair. It was wavy, natural curly. She kept it short, but till the day she died, she had a head full of hair, and it was wavy, beautiful, beautiful. And when she was sick in the hospital, when she had to go to the hospital, she called me, 5 sisters. My mother called me, and she said, I've got to go. Where should I go? And I said, go to Twin Lakes. And I took her over there. And then the first night she was there, she went in something. Anyway, a couple of weeks later, she was scared. But she called me. We were close. I was close to my mother and my grandmother. Oh my! But I wanted to say something about my dad. I missed it. I was not that close to my dad. He was very stern, but he saw to it that I was in Sunday school in church every Sunday. He saw that, he did. He saw that I was there. Now, he may not have known what I was doing, but he saw that I was in the building. And I will tell you, he usually opened the doors for the preacher. He was almost the first one that was there. He became like a lot of men. He started a deacon, then an elder, then a trustee, and then very, very active in the churches. Very giving. He gave the land for this church, first church up here beside the grocery store. The place where Marty's painting was his grocery store out here. Then he had one down on, maybe on Front Street downtown. And I had two men that became residents over here. They came to me and they said, Hazel, if your dad had not given us credit during the war for our groceries, I don't know how we would have made it. And so I hear things like this. You hear this about your parents. And I wish I could find what I said, but I said I didn't appreciate him as much growing up. But I have come to admire this man, a man that had to quit school, 4th grade. Being a farmer, he found out that a lot of banks, farmers had trouble. So he helped start Community Federal Savings and Loan. Eventually was president. He had people on his board that were businessmen, much better educations than he did. But my dad was president of that bank for years and years and years. Yes. Huh? Thank you. He was. He was chief Democratic judge over at Turntine for years and years and years, and took, what did he bring you all? Apples and what else? Cantaloupe? Did he bring cantaloupe? He was something. Listen, we'll stop. You all get up and go. When I talk about my family, I get real weepy. You do, you know. My mom and dad were good people, good country people, but good. And my grandmother, oh my Lord. When you walk 2 miles to see somebody at 6 and 7 years old, you must want to see them. But I didn't know it. Listen, thank you all so much for coming.
You did great.
I went to school with this guy.